welcome everybody to another episode of the J2 Hub podcast. This week we're focusing again on another episode for my series that I'm doing, Women in Property. It's a series that I'd like to take full credit for, but I can't, because it was actually my wonderful wife who suggested that, James, you should be speaking to more ladies in properties because your podcast seems to be very man-focused and man-heavy. And I'm so glad I took her advice on, because this series has allowed me to speak to some really, really amazing ladies that, you know, you see them out in the public eye, you see them in the social scene, and they just kind of stay relatively quiet. But when they came onto the podcast, I was just blown away at the level of projects some of these ladies are involved in, the size of the projects, and some of the things that women are generally involved in. I just found that the ladies are keeping it really, really quiet, you know, just cracking on with it, getting on with it and not saying too much, whereas the men are always out on social like, oh, I'm doing this renovation, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So I thought, you know what? But what better way of putting some of the men to shame than getting some really powerful ladies onto the podcast and speaking to them about their experiences. So my guest today has already been on the J2 Hub podcast before, but she's been on as a power duo involved in HMOs. And today I'm speaking to Mary Osman from the Elite Investor Group on her own, talking about her as a lady in property. So Mary, welcome to the J2 Hub podcast. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, James. It's a pleasure to be here.
No worries at all. Now, I've had the pleasure of speaking to you before. I know who you are and what you do, but some of the listeners might not know what you're about and what you're involved in. I think you do some really amazing projects, and we'll talk about some of those in a moment. But for the benefit of the listeners, do you want to just let them know who Mary Osman is and what you're all about and what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you, James. So yeah, my name is Mary. I'm one half of Elite Investor Group in property, and I am an architect who's turned into a property developer and investor. So I've been an architect for the past 15 years, absolutely loved buildings and anything to do with design and being creative. About 5 years ago, myself and the other half decided to quit our jobs because we were so consumed in the commercial scene, commercial architecture, designing amazing huge buildings for everyone else, and we needed to take a break from our 9 till 12 midnight days. Packed up our bags and went and saw some amazing different places in the world, and realized that there's probably a different way to live other than doing 9 till 12 midnights. And after lots of towing and throwing, because our interest and my interest was so much into architecture and buildings, property really made sense. And that's how I came onto the property investment and the scene myself, and been loving it ever since. So the buildings that I'm involved in is HMO. So we have a HMO portfolio. We do have a small service accommodation portfolio as well. So we are familiar with rent service accommodation. And now we're building up a really good portfolio of HMOs. And being a commercial architect myself, you know, HMOs are a really nice size of buildings to work with. And when we perfect that, or when I perfect that, I intend to get bigger and bigger, because commercial conversions and things like that seem very straightforward to me. So I hope that gave you a bit of a gist. I do actually, I'm a lecturer as well in architecture and interior architecture.
Wow, you got a lot going on. Mary, before I get into some questions about your strategies and what you do you want to tell the listeners, because I think you just drummed this down a little bit, you're an architect, but you're not just a normal architect. I know you've worked on some amazing projects. So do you want to just share some of the things you have worked on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've worked on, just being a commercial architect, I've worked on really interesting, really big projects, but really varied, because when I kind of first set out as being an architect, I didn't really know what field to go into. So I worked for really big firms, working on really, really big projects. So I started working on projects like big super hospitals, and you know, the London Underground. I was one of the architects for the Tottenham Court Road. I was working on the Tottenham Court Road station with Arup and huge engineering companies like that. I would say London Underground, things like that seem really cool and glamorous. There's not that much design that goes in it. Kind of got bored there. So yeah, but really, you know, really interesting projects like that. And then other projects. So I've worked both in London, in Manchester, and also in Sydney, Australia. So in Manchester, I've been involved with heritage buildings like the Corn Exchange. If some of you listeners know the Corn Exchange, it's an absolutely gorgeous building in the city centre that we converted into food and beverage halls, and then a hotel above. And then in Australia, I worked with the Mayor of Shanghai because he wanted this amazing jewel of a building for himself in Sydney. And I worked on a multi-residential development with him in a firm that was basically, he just wanted everything made out of marble and gold.
Wow.
And we convinced him not to go for gold because it's not trendy. But yeah, everything was in marble. And I think basically one of the apartments sold for about £13 million.
Wow.
I know, it was absolutely mental. I remember kind of speaking to one of my colleagues at that point and saying, so we were designing this thing, right? And like putting marble everywhere and stuff like that, and being like, and then the reality hit us, and we said, every square meter of this building costs 30k. And at that time, I couldn't afford 1 square meter of this building. It's like, can't afford this place. I know, it was absolutely amazing. But yeah, I've worked on really, really interesting projects and kind of developing those skills and everything, understanding, working with other property developers and understanding how the rigor that they go through, how they work, who they work with, and how they kind of leverage their time, really like opened up my eyes to, you know, what I should be doing rather than kind of working behind the desk all the time.
No, fair enough. Mary, what was it that led you to a career in architecture?
I really, really loved design. I just always loved design, loved drawing, painting, all the rest of it. And it was kind of, I didn't think, oh, I'll go be an architect. You know, some people who are like, oh, I really like, so most people, especially guys, in architecture, when you're like, oh, you know, what led you to be an architect? And they're like, oh, I really like playing with Lego. I did like playing with Lego, but but that wasn't really it. I just really like design. But being coming from an Asian background, we always kind of want to be the top of our game. Like, oh, you got to be the best of whatever you're interested in. Most people tell you to be a doctor anyway. But then I was like, I just have to pick something that's on top of the arts and design. And sat with a careers advisor, didn't I? And they were like, oh yeah, you should do architecture. It's great. It'll give you loads of money. And I was like, okay, I'll go with that. If I see her again, I'll be like, loads of money. So she sold me a bit of a false myth, but yeah, it, you know, looking back at it, I wouldn't change a thing. It was a really good experience.
Wow, no. So when you went into architecture, when you graduated and you went off and got your first job, did you find it was a man-heavy profession, or was it quite balanced?
Oh my God, balanced. There wasn't, I think when I first became a chartered architect, I was building this I was designing and building a building in Oldham near Manchester. It's not a glamorous part of the world, but it's great. And it was a 5-story building and things like that. And every week I used to go to site to review site and have site meetings and stuff like that. And there wasn't a single woman on site. There was never a single woman on site.
Wow.
And it was really intimidating. I think it took me a year to get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it took me a long time to get used to it, and not being intimidated by older men as well. It wasn't just, I used to turn up to meetings not just on site but in my office as well, and I would be the only young woman there, surrounded by middle-aged men. So you really have to develop a voice as well, which is really difficult, being like, oh, just become an architect. and now I have to actually like stand my ground, against or like towards these guys who are looking at me thinking, why is she here?
Yeah.
Let
Wow.
alone she's the architect on the job, so it means I'm responsible for designing and coordinating all of these middle-aged men. And I actually went through like periods of not just being intimidated, but them saying things to me to intimidate me and kind of put me down and things like that, just so they could get on with it and do what they want. To a point where, it's a funny story. So it's just side stories really. I was on site one day. This is when I grew a bit more confidence, became a bit more confident in myself. But I was on site one day. The site guys knew me and stuff like that, but it was towards the end of the project, and I was doing snagging, and it was this big building. I was doing snagging and I was going around and stuff like that, and there was an elderly, there was an elderly man, and he was just doing the cleaning. He was cleaning all the like internal glazing and stuff like that, because we've created lots of these meeting pods and things like that. And he looked around, came over at me and said, "Hiya, love, are you lost?" And I just looked at him and I was like, and it took me a minute. I was just like, what? And he was like, "Are you lost, love?" And I was just like, right. I was like, actually, so I'd grown some, whatever women have.
Yeah.
I was like, actually, I know every beam that's in this building. I know every brick that's on every wall. And I know every, circulation, ventilation duct that's been placed in this building. So no, I'm not lost. But thanks for asking.
What was his response to that?
It was just like, really taken aback. And then I was like snagging the building. Bless him. I think people who are older as well, they just don't expect it, so I can't be harsh. But yeah, they've never seen women on site and things like that. So yeah, it took, I think, like I said, it took me a year to actually grow some confidence. And I think a lot of confidence comes as well in knowledge. So the more you know, the more you actually carry yourself better. It's not it's not so much the case of fake it till you make it. You actually have to know
what you're talking about.
Otherwise you can't talk it anyway. So I think, a lot of my confidence came in knowledge, and I just became a sponge. I used to take in so much information, and I used to do so many late hours just because I wanted things to be right, and I wanted to know things, and I wanted to research things, and literally go and research absolutely everything. So I knew in the next meeting or next site visit, I knew exactly what was going on.
Wow. Do you think you're already at a disadvantage then, walking in from someone who may have been a bloke walking in?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think we all know there's obviously very different personality types, and like both women and men have different personality types. But I think sort of more so in men, and in men in kind of the construction careers, they come forward a lot more confident, even if they're the same age as you and they know the same amount of knowledge. When I was doing my, I think it was my, so architecture has part 1, part 2 and chartership. So after my undergraduate studies, I had a year of industry where I was working in a big firm called 𝗵𝗶𝗶. It's a really, really nice firm, actually. Loved working there. But we were working, I kid you not, on, so this was, now you'll know how old I am. We were working on 10 Libya campuses when Colonel Gaddafi was still in power.
Wow.
And, you know, I think it was for his 40th anniversary or something like that. But he was really high on education anyway, so we were creating these 10 university campuses. Absolutely amazing experience, because as young as I was designing huge buildings. I was designing these amazing buildings and getting loads of experience of how to design buildings in a hot climate. We were building it in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and they were going to get, you know, all these materials, water, everything. They were like new mini little like cities in the middle of the Sahara Desert. So that was really amazing. But kind of coming back to the point, so we were working in big teams, and there were guys, there was I think there was, I don't know, 6 guys and 6 girls or something like that. But I think there was less girls, actually. There were 3 or 4 girls, 6, 7 guys, all like same age. We were doing all the drafting and everything like that for the project. And we had a review. We had a 6-month review, and we had to rank ourselves like out of 5, and all the girls kind of ranked themselves like 3, you know, I'm all right, I'm learning, and all the guys ranked themselves at 5s. Like, what? And I was only in the meeting with my director, and he was like, why have you ranked yourself a 3? He was like, you and the other girl are the best, you know, kind of graduates we've had. And we've had these guys ranking themselves at 5s. I didn't even know they ranked themselves at 5. And you guys have ranked yourselves at 3s. And I was like, oh my God, that, you know, that was the start of realization of, oh my God, I think very differently to the guys, and my experience in this career is going to be very different. But yeah, learning that early on is good, because you can do something about it.
No, I hear you. Yeah, it's you only have to look around. I mean, you go to networking events. When I go to networking events, I always see the men are just like, oh, I'm working on this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And the ladies, you can see, they kind of give them a bit of a look to think, really? And it's always, the men are just like, it's always about me, what I'm working on, what I'm doing. Where I find, where every time I talk to a lady at a networking event, it's more so, let's find out about the person before you go in and delve into whatever project you're doing. So I totally understand where you're coming from, where you say those guys are ranking themselves at 5. I'm surprised they weren't trying to rank themselves at 6s and 7s, you know, numbers that didn't even exist on the scale.
I would say though that kind of women have an advantage in certain other aspects. For example, sort of building relationships with state agents, building relationship with vendors, things like that. I think females are seen, I know we have a very warped world, but females are seen as a bit more honest and trustworthy. So in my experience, kind of between me and my other half and kind of other people that we see in business, I find that females are kind of considered better candidates to state agents, to vendors and stuff like that. And, you know, I myself have done pretty well with direct to vendors. So yeah, I think we do have kind of, whereas kind of males are seen as kind of benefiting in some senses, females are definitely also benefiting.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. Because I find the men will kind of go in and say, oh, I'm looking for a house that can be converted into a HMO that's 30% below market value. I'm a cash buyer. Have you got anything for me? And it's like, who's this pleb? Get him out of the office straight away. Whereas, a woman
Yeah.
walking totally different, and it's like, hi Dave, how's your day going? You having a good time? And you automatically put someone at ease. And I've learnt this from watching ladies in estate agents when I've been sitting there. I've learnt some techniques myself where now when I speak to an agent, I am number one focused on finding out everything about that agent and his personal life
Nice. Yeah.
before I go in and ask him about a single property. And that's really, really worked in my favor, because I found I'm now getting stuff offered to me where previously I wouldn't have got a look in. And I think it's purely been through relationship building, just having reaching out to an agent every so often and just saying, look, I'm not calling you to see if you've got anything, but I am actually calling you to see if you've got anything. But it's more so, let's have a catch up. You've moved to your new house. How's that going? You told me you were getting a new kitchen. How's that going? And then you subtly drop it in there. There's ways and means you could do this. And I think I've learned a lot of this from when I used to spend time in estate agent offices and watch the way women were interacting with an agent compared to the way a man was interacting with an agent.
Oh, it's really good lessons. They're really good. I love
Yeah,
it.
no. So Mary, I want to fast forward now. From what you've told me on the architect scene, it kind of seems like you really, you got a real good foundation there with some skills that you've learned that obviously have now been transferred into what you're doing. Can we talk a bit more about your HMO strategy? Because I remember on the last podcast, you said to me, I'm not interested in taking on small projects where you just paint a wall and change a carpet and have a grey feature wall. That's not me. I want to do something creative. So can we talk about how you just went straight into, because am I right in saying you and Andrew went straight into a HMO? You didn't do anything in between?
No, we did rent a service accommodation, but that's got nothing to do with actually doing build projects. That was to understand property a bit more and kind of just look at a different strand of income. But yeah, we were encouraged. So we came back from traveling in Australia, kind of working out there and stuff like that, and wanted to get straight into property. And several times when I contacted brokers, solicitors and stuff like that, they told me that that we had to buy buy-to-lets before we go into service accommodation, go into HMOs. And because of my background, I've done huge buildings, and the minimum kind of building cost might have been 3 million or something like that. And I was just like, oh my God, to buy a single let, I changed the carpet and painted the wall. I can't do this.
You've designed bathrooms bigger than that, haven't you?
Absolutely. And so I was just like, oh no, I can't do this. And so we were just really determined and wanted to do bigger projects and projects that we could get tangible value back, because obviously with property you're putting a certain amount of money and you want to get as much back as possible, so you want to do as much work on it as possible, so you do achieve that. And you do, for example, if you do extensions, lock conversions or something like that. And we wanted to get buildings that are dilapidated, gut it out and get something sizable out of it. And I think for us, HMOs made a lot more sense because it's not kind of on the top of the food chain. It's not commercial conversion to start off with, but it's not buy to let either. So we thought, okay, HMOs are really good kind of standing ground for us to start in. And come hella whole, what did they say? What's that saying?
I have no idea.
Something like that. But yeah, we were just like, we just got to do it. And it wasn't easy to get our first HMO mortgage, so we had to have kind of bring in somebody who was kind of a silent partner. So we could actually get that mortgage, but we were so determined. So I think kind of for anybody listening, if you actually really want something, there's a way to get it. And don't give up on it. So many people told us to give up on it, and for a year or so they were like, you should get buy to let and you should let it and then get somebody to come on board. Then you would get your mortgage for a HMO. But we had no interest in it. I didn't want to do a small project. So if you really want something, you make it happen. that really got ingrained into me. I was like, I can make this happen. And my motto is, if there's a will, there's a way, and I'll make it happen.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I love how you knew exactly what you wanted to do. There's loads of people trying to deter you along the way, and you was like, nope, I can only see that one thing and I'm going straight for it.
Yeah, that's
love
it.
that.
So yeah, no, and it's been a great journey. And in terms of our the HMOs that we design, it's always high-end HMOs. So we want to because I'm an architect and I'm involved in interior design as well. For me, it's really important to get the best user experience. So end user experience is really, really important. And end user experience, a great end user experience comes in the way you lay your spaces and in the way that you finish your spaces, and the experience that they get when they actually walk around a building and walk around the site, and you know, the maneuverability, how you lay out and where you lay out your kitchens, your bathrooms, everything is like an end user experience. And you really got to kind of get into the psychology of people and understand design psychology, and that's really important for me. And that's how like our business model is and how our business is run. It's all about the end user experience and making the best spaces for people to live.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, one of the things that's come and, you know, highlighted from COVID is the importance of having a outdoor space, you know, and having an area where people can, you know, work together or co-live together, or, you know, just eat together. And even now, when I'm assessing projects, I'm more like, oh, what does the garden look like? Whereas before, it was always like, how big are the rooms?
Yeah.
Now it's like,
how much garden can I take?
Yeah, and it's like, what can I do with this outdoor space? Because suddenly it's just flipped up, and you know, the outdoor space has become just as important as the rooms and the en-suites. That was always, oh, we can just put 5 en-suites on here and we'll be fine with a nice kitchen diner. But then you think, if you have another wave of lockdown, if you've got a nice big garden, are you going to be a lot better than somebody else who hasn't got a garden? And you know, like you just said there, knowing what your end user wants and trying to envisage how they're going to live and how they're going to move around the house. So I think that's really, really powerful stuff, what you just said there. And a lot of investors, it's always like, you know what, let's just squeeze another room in there, rather than think, let's just make that into a communal space where people can chill.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, and enjoy themselves. I think you made a really interesting point actually, about people working from home. So in our HMOs, like at the beginning when we were doing designs for HMOs, we noticed that a lot of people don't really put any desks in professional HMOs. That's what we focus on at the moment. We do kind of young professional HMOs, and a lot of people don't really put desks on, but we kind of just made the decision to allow for a desk space and to put a desk into kind of all our HMO rooms when we were designing it. Just because we thought, you know what, even if it becomes a makeup table or whatever it becomes, you know, a dumping, you know, where they dump stuff because they don't work there, it's something that they should be able to have. It's another piece of furniture or another space that they should be able to have and to be able to sit on. And it's been a blessing in disguise, because half of our tenants have been working from home. And, you know, they have that desk space, and they wouldn't be able to have that in some houses, and they wouldn't even have the space for it or the location for it. When we got our new tenants, they were specifically like, oh, okay, how big is the desk, and do you have enough desk space? And 2 monitors. And 2 monitors might be a bit difficult, but but yeah, it was really great to be able to, you know, say, yeah, we've got loads of desk space for you.
Yeah, no, I think times are changing, and like you said, having an area where people can work, that's one of the things that we've really focused in on our London HMO, is that even in the communal area, we want to have a large area where people can sit with laptops. There's super fast broadband throughout the house, and just going to the extent of making sure there's Ethernet ports in every room in case somebody wants to plug something in case somebody wants to plug a booster in. Because I think since March, COVID has highlighted for me that working from home has become massively important. And I reckon a lot of people are going to divert their staff from working from home to save on, costs for office spaces and etc. etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think stuff like that is really important. And you're right, Ethernet cables are really important now, especially with bigger buildings as well, where, you're not just 2 stories, maybe you've got a basement and you've got a top floor, a loft conversion or something like that. I think, to get really high speed internet in there is really good.
Mm. Mary, talk me through one of your builds, please. What I want to know in particular is contractors and how they were dealing with you personally as a woman on site, because I've heard some horror stories in the past. I want to know what your experiences were as a woman telling a contractor or a builder, I want a wall here, I need a beam here, I need this out, I need that. How did you come across them and how were they to you?
I think in the beginning, not just in the beginning actually, I think I have very kind of like a soft tone and I come forward quite friendly rather than direct. So when I initially talk to contractors, builders, electricians, they really explain things to me like I haven't got a clue.
That's a wire.
The other day, we got a new electrician and he was like, I was explaining about the consumer unit and he was like, yeah. And then he was just saying, oh yeah, and we can do this or we can't do this. It goes like he was just telling me the real basics. I was like, yes, I know, I know about this. Will you just listen to me? I need it moving. But yeah, kind of initially, I think they think that you don't know anything and you need a big explanation. But I think as soon as I kind of go above what they're saying and use their terminology, they very quickly learn that I know what it's about, and they very quickly learn that I've done this before, and they they get the hang of it. I think very early on, because I've been in this industry for so long, very early on, like I told you, I used to get stung all the time and people didn't used to take me seriously at all. But I've kind of learned how to deal with that. And I think it's, it gets better and better. And it's a matter of kind of knowing your contractor and then how to work with them. I think it's kind of like a more of a two-way relationship and them kind of having an understanding with you. So I think it's much improved, which is good.
Mm-hmm. Do you think gender discrimination still exists in the property field and construction?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's getting better, which is really, really good. But being in the industry, again, being in the kinds of the office environment industry, so being at university and being as an architect as well, kind of every year we know that females in the same position get paid less than males in the same position.
Wow.
So there's a huge discrimination still in the whole of the industry, kind of not just in the construction side of things. Yeah, I think there absolutely is, but hopefully it's slowly changing.
Yeah, I think I don't see why people think a man can do a job better than a woman, because I personally find it's the other way around. Generally, like you said before, you said a woman's going to have more attention to detail, I find, whereas, being a man myself, I've seen it, we will cut certain corners or we will try and get away with certain things. And I've always found, even working with my wife, if we're looking at if we're looking at a layout for a kitchen, she'll spot things and say, what about that tiny space there? And I'm like, well, we could just put a panel there. And it's like, but why? Or how is that person going to reach that? Or how is someone, if they're cooking here and if they need to move to here to wash something, how are they going to get through that island bit? And you're sitting there as a man, you're thinking, oh man, they'll figure it out, won't they? And it's like, no. And it comes back to what you said. It's going through that whole journey of how someone's going to be in that space. And I think that's where men ain't always very good at identifying that, and it's like my wife says to me all the time, where am I going to go? I need a pantry because I need to get something out of there when I'm cooking. I don't want to be walking all the way down there. Or I said, why can't we put a utility room in a basement? Well, I have to go all the way to the basement, wash everything up, then bring it all the way up into the garden to hang stuff out. It doesn't make sense. For a man, you're thinking, well, that's not really a big deal. But when you start thinking about it logically, yes, there's a 2-step process there. You've got to go downstairs, you've got to bring this up. So I definitely feel there's more attention to detail, especially when my wife overlooks something. I find that as well.
Yeah.
Mary, I want to ask. Sorry.
You're a lucky guy, so she's very intelligent.
Yeah, no, she is. Yeah, she's the real boss.
Absolutely. We know from our last interview.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Likewise.
Yeah, I know.
Mary, I want to ask you a question. If there are any ladies listening to this and thinking, you know what, I really want to get started in the property field. I'm a little bit concerned. It's real man heavy. I don't know how I'm going to deal with contractors. I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. You being someone who's gone through that, what would be your advice to them?
I think, again, just my motto, if there's a will, there's a way. I think there's huge opportunities for females in the construction industry. There's huge opportunities for females to get into property and work with kind of everyone, including contractors, builders, planners to, other architects and everyone, solicitors, everyone, and estate agents, every step of the way there. I think building, even if you kind of don't have confidence, your confidence grows as you grow as an investor, and a developer. And I think the best advice to give is to just learn and immerse yourself as much as possible. So go to every networking event, try to talk to kind of everyone has value. So try to talk to everybody, try to, join different groups, different Facebook groups, follow people on Instagram, listen to James's podcast. He's had amazing.
Hey!
Absolutely. And there's just so much great information out there to immerse yourself. The more you learn, the more confident you become. And I think I can give that kind of as a personal thing, whereas when I started in the field, I had a lot less confidence. And it's in knowledge that you gain confidence. So the more you go out there, put yourself out there, do it and learn from other people, it's just a matter of time that you'll become amazing, and you can do property investment in your sleep, hopefully. It becomes a lot easier and a lot more natural.
So get the knowledge, then you've got the power.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mary, am I right in saying you're part of a group called, is it Sisters in Property?
Yeah, Property Sisters, I am. Yeah, it's brilliant. Really.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So Property Sisters is a really, really strong network of investor females who have kind of come together and want to share knowledge. It's not exclusive. So it's not that, males are excluded or anything like that. It's just to empower other females. And I know in lots of our podcasts and stuff, in our sessions, brunch sessions and stuff like that, we do get males in there, and it's great. But it's basically to empower everyone. And we've got a YouTube channel, and there's WhatsApps and websites and stuff like that you can contact Property Sisters through. And there's lots of meetups as well, which aren't happening at the moment. But we do all the online meetups as well. So if you do want to get involved, contact me or contact Ruth Hobbs, who's and Gillian Hobbs, who are the main sisters who started to run Property Sisters, and it's a really, really good network. So I'm someone who is, when Property Sisters talk, and they talk about the different things they do, and they communicating on WhatsApp, these women are doing some amazing things that you don't get from any other communication. They're doing some huge works, like massive commercial works and stuff like that. So it's just so inspiring to see females doing that. And you think, because like you were saying, James, when you do go to these meetups and stuff like that, females don't tend to say out loud what they do, whereas men do. And these women are doing enormous projects. So
I know.
joining these groups, so you're just like, oh my God, what are you doing? So I feel like a little fish in their big pond, actually.
I actually subscribed to the YouTube channel because I caught that SketchUp session that you did, which I thought was pretty amazing. You know, I missed the webinar on it, and someone pointed me to the YouTube channel, and yeah, that was a really good session, really insightful.
Oh, nice one, thank you. Yeah, any more SketchUp things you need, James, give me a shout.
I will do. I certainly will. I did actually reach out, I think, to Ruth Hobbs to come on the Women in Property series, but I don't know what response I got back. I can't remember actually. I think it might have been a slightly odd response, if I can remember, because the name is ringing a bell, but I won't go into that too much. So Mary,
maybe your introduction wasn't quite right. Did you do a man introduction to yourself?
No, it wasn't actually. I think it was more so like, you know, we really want to focus on women in property doing big things. I don't know. Maybe I'll reach out to her again, because her name kept getting recommended. She kept getting recommended to come on, and yeah, I don't think she did. But hey, anyway. Mary, if there's anybody out there who wants to get in contact with you, where's the best place for them to reach you?
Absolutely. So you can contact me on Facebook or Instagram. We're mainly on Instagram at Elite Investor Group. You can also email us at team@eliteinvestorgroup.com. And yeah, anything social media wise, we're at 𝗿𝗏𝗍𝗏group.com.
Oh, you had to think about that for a minute.
And because everything's Elite Investor Group. Not that difficult, but you can contact me on LinkedIn as well, and that's Mary Osman, OSMAN. I'm not that active on it. I should, because it's a really good platform.
And in case anybody's wondering, Mary is the boss out of Andrew and Mary. We have had this confirmed live on a previous podcast, and she's not denying it at all.
No, he doesn't deny it either. It's all fine. Everything.
He's a sensible man.
Exactly. He knows what's good.
Well, Mary, thank you very much again. You know, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've now been able to speak to you twice on the J2 Hub podcast, and I think you've offered up some really insightful stuff for ladies. And like I said, I really wanted to get you on because I feel you've got some really strong skills in design, and I think people should really go and follow your Instagram page because it's fantastic. And I'm loving Coldwell that's just been finished. And what did I see the other day that really stood out was the Rouge Room. I looked at that and I was like, wow, this is like a hotel.
I know. So the Rouge Room is an interior design project I did with she's an informal client and mentee of ours. She's absolutely lovely. But yeah, she was just really determined for me to do the interior design for the place. So yeah, got us involved in it. It was a really beautiful experience. It was an old Victorian building. It was beautiful, and I was just like, oh, I can turn this into such a nice place. So yeah, I've actually started doing interior design for other investors, which is really nice, actually.
I strongly encourage everybody to go and follow the Instagram page because it's really inspiring, really uplifting, and you guys are doing some amazing things.
Lovely. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on, James. It's a pleasure just conversing with you. It's just so nice to talk to you and come on the J2 Hub. Please, anybody, listen to all of his episodes. There's some gems of information that James puts forward and has great interviews. Just love it. Love everything that you do. Thanks, James.
Oh, Mary, I really appreciate that. And I think the time has almost come for us to physically all meet up and have that cold drink together. We've been talking about it for a while. I think we're getting closer. So thank you once again for joining me on the J2 Hub podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.